In my previous life, the girl who grew up with me in the orphanage was adopted by a wealthy family, while I was taken in by a janitor. But that rich household was torn apart by internal strife. The parents were cold, and the brother constantly bullied her. In the end, she was kicked out with nothing but the clothes on her back. My adoptive family, on the other hand, was warm and harmonious. What's more, the young master of that very same rich family fell head over heels for me, a fragile little white lotus like a dragonfly, just like something out of a romance drama. In the end, my dear sister was consumed by jealousy and killed me. But unexpectedly, both of us were reborn, returning to the very day we were to be adopted. This time, she made her move first, throwing herself into the arms of the janitor and declaring to me, "Sister, this time, the female lead of the love story will be me." What she didn't know was that becoming the heroine isn't something that comes just from choosing the right family. In this life, both she and I came back to the orphanage on the day the families arrived. Waiting in the director's office were two couples, the Smiths and the Johnsons. The Smith family were immaculate, the father in a tailored suite, the mother, elegant and radiant, and their only son, Ethan Smith, wearing his elite high school uniform and a pair of globally limited edition sneakers. They were the most powerful family in California. The father was a business tycoon whose companies paid more taxes than anyone else in the city. The mother was a famous socialite often seen at jewelry auctions and charity galas, mingling with A-list celebrities. Ethan Smith himself was known as the Crown Prince of California. Next to them, the Johnsons looked downright humble, traces of physical labor still on their faces and hands. Even though they had dressed in their best clothes, a few stains still showed. The director explained that the husband worked as a security guard, while the wife was a janitor at California's top high school. In my previous life, Ariel didn't hesitate to choose the Smiths. But this time, as if terrified of being one step too late, she rushed straight into the janitor's arms and said, "Mom, please take me home. I want to be your daughter. From now on, my name will be Ariel Johnson." While she rejoiced, I calmly walked toward the Smiths. And just like that, the choice was made. We were each taken away by our new families. Before leaving the orphanage, I overheard the director mutter in confusion, "Strange, Ariel used to be the proudest one. If someone came to adopt her wearing ordinary clothes, she wouldn't even spare them a glance. Why didn't she pick the real rich family this time?" The director didn't understand, but I did perfectly. In our previous life, Ariel had done everything she could to enter the Smith family, dreaming of becoming Ariel Smith, living like a princess, and having the Crown Prince of California as her older brother. According to the logic of romance dramas, the rich young master and the adopted girl living under one roof were bound to fall in love. But Ariel never expected Ethan Smith to not only lack gentleness, but to despise her to the core. He once said, "The thing I hate most in this world is opportunists. Don't think I can't see through a green tea bitch like you. All you want is my family's money." At home, Ethan bullied her mercilessly. At school, he brought his gang of followers to torment her. Ethan's parents knew but never truly cared. They just scolded her half-heartedly. They'd only adopted Ariel because a feng shui master said that raising a girl would bring the Smiths 10 years of good fortune. Naturally, between their biological son and an adopted daughter, they favored their own flesh and blood. Meanwhile, the Johnsons who adopted me treated me with genuine love. Ethan Smith noticed that despite being on a poverty scholarship, working as a janitor's helper after school, and living a hard life, I never once complained. He began to find me, Kara Johnson, intriguing just like a drama cliché, the arrogant rich boy falling for the resilient girl from a poor family. Later, when Ethan's parents passed away and the inheritance was divided, he brought in a team of lawyers that left Ariel with nothing. A few months later, Ethan Smith married me and even declared publicly, "At our wedding, Kara, from now on, everything I have belongs to you." But tragically, before I could enjoy any of it, Ariel, driven mad by despair, rammed her car into me and killed me. Now reborn, Ariel wasted no time choosing the Johnsons. She believed that even without wealth, she'd have a loving family, grow up happy, catch the eye of a rich young master, be protected by him, and eventually have a fairy tale wedding. She sneered at me, "Sister, this time the female lead's role is mine. You should try tasting what I went through." Ariel's guess wasn't wrong. Except that this time, Ethan Smith's bullying came for me earlier than it ever had for her. At school, my head was shoved into a sink as the boys around laughed mockingly. Just as I was about to run out of air, someone yanked my hair back. Ethan Smith smirked. "After my money, huh? Fine. Drink the water in this toilet. Every sip earns you 10 grand. How about it?" His lackeys cheered him on. I stared at Ethan, the same man who once told me he loved me now pouring all his malice onto me. But his gaze soon shifted past me, landing on Ariel, who was mopping the floor nearby. One of the boys said, "That's the janitor's daughter, Ariel. She goes to school by day and helps her mom clean up at night." Ethan's eyes flickered with surprise, then softened with pity. He called out, "Hey, it's freezing. Stop mopping already. No one's gonna check." Ariel looked up, golden hair falling over her face, her delicate features showing determination as she replied, "I can't. If the floor's dirty, my mom's paycheck will be docked 100 yuan. I know that's nothing to you, but to us, that's our week's food money." Then she lowered her head and kept scrubbing. I knew exactly what she was doing, deliberately mopping near Ethan. Letting her hair fall just right, crafting the perfect picture of fragile resilience. Predictably, Ethan walked over, helped her up, snatched the mop, and threw it at his followers. "You guys finish the rest," he ordered. Then, seeing her red, chilled hands, he thought for a moment before draping his jacket over her shoulders. "How are you getting home? Riding your bike in this cold? Wait downstairs. My driver will take you." Ariel left under Ethan's protection, but not before giving me, drenched and humiliated, a mocking smile over her shoulder. Moments later, the crowd dispersed. I struggled to my feet beside the sink, wiping the cold water off my face with my sleeve. Then a calm voice came from behind me. "Use this instead." I turned back. It was our class president, Desi. She was a quiet girl, diligent, always wearing long sleeves no matter the season. In my past life, she had also stepped in to help when Ariel was bullied, offering her a towel, urging her to expose Ethan Smith's behavior. But Ariel had brushed her off, saying, "You don't understand. He's my brother." Back then, Ariel was still lost in her fantasy of being loved by Ethan Smith. After that, Desi stopped getting involved, retreating to her quiet, solitary world. Up until right before graduation, she took her own life. Only then did we learn how tragic her family situation was. A bedridden grandmother, a father, addicted to gambling who not only beat her but even tried to sell her to pay off his debts. Right now, she was standing next to me with a clean towel in her hand. I froze for a second, then took it. She said nothing more, turned around, and was about to leave. Perhaps in her eyes, I, the Smith family's young lady, had nothing to say to someone like her. Watching her figure about to disappear, I suddenly called out, "Class rep!" Desi halted. I scratched my head. I'm new here and don't know my way around. Where's the cafeteria? Could you take me?" On the cafeteria table sat 4 dishes and a soup, braised ribs, steamed egg with minced pork, chicken wings and cola sauce, stir-fried greens, and winter melon clam soup. No wonder this is California's #1 high school. The cafeteria food is something students boast about. I scratched my head again. I ordered too much by accident. It'd be a waste to throw it out." "You probably haven't had dinner either. Eat with me?" Desi was silent for a moment, then picked up her chopsticks and began to eat in small bites. I glanced at her wrist, all bone beneath the uniform sleeve, and sighed softly. Girls like her are the ones who truly need help. But because they aren't pretty and never cry for attention, they remain forever the wild grass of youth, never qualified to become the heroine of an idol drama. In this life, I wasn't just going to save myself. I wanted to save her too. With that in mind, I said, "Ugh, parabolas and ellipses are so hard. I don't understand a thing. You're a top student. Can you teach me?" Desi had a piece of braised rib between her teeth and looked at me as if she'd misheard. I didn't give her a chance to refuse. Throwing an arm around her shoulders, I said, "It's settled then. I'll pay you for tutoring." I handed the class rep a portion of my living expenses as advanced tutoring fees. Staring at the thick envelope stuffed with red bills, she was struck speechless. In truth, whether in the previous life or this one, the Smiths had never been stingy with the adopted child when it came to clothes or pocket money. For Desi, this was enough to buy medicine for her grandmother, pay hospital bills, and even rent a small room to get away from her abusive father. After setting a time for remedial lessons the next day, I went home. Inside the lavish villa, it was empty and cold. My foster father busy with social functions, my foster mother off at a spa treatment, and as for Ethan Smith, he was no doubt having dinner at the Johnsons'. In my previous life, after driving me home, he'd been asked to stay for dinner by Ariel Johnson's adoptive parents. And then, right on cue like in an idol drama, one simple meal let the young master who was used to the chill of a wealthy household experience the so-called warmth of family in a poor home. The Johnsons' gentle smiles, the cramped and shabby house rich with the smell of cooking smoke, It all captivated Ethan Smith. He fell even harder for that white lotus born in poverty. Right now, even if the meal was plain and greasy, the two of them were probably feeling very happy. I slowly changed into a Hermes robe, washed my face with Chanel cleanser, and accepted. A bowl of rock sugar bird's nest from the nanny, the corner of my lips lifting coldly. No one knew that although the Johnsons were indeed poor, they were by no means simple. They preferred sons over daughters. They had originally wanted a boy, but since the orphanage had no healthy boys, they settled on a pretty girl, easier to hook a golden turtle later. When they saw Ethan Smith bring their daughter home, their blood ran hot. They immediately kept him for dinner and laid on the hospitality. That so-called family affection and warmth was nothing but a performance. To conquer a rich young master, that was all the capital they had. In my previous life, when I said I didn't want to marry Ethan Smith, my foster mother locked me in my room, and my foster father beat me nearly to death with a chair leg and belt. Ariel thought that this time she had stepped into heaven, but there is no true heaven in this world. The Smiths are the hell of luxury. The Johnsons are the hell of poverty. If you want to crawl out of hell alive, you rely on your own mettle. In the days that followed, Ethan Smith's malice toward me escalated. At lunch, when I opened the bento the nanny had prepared, it was packed with thumbtacks. He stuffed dead spiders into my facial cleanser and toothpaste. The dresses in my closet were burned through with cigarette butts. Whenever I startled and looked up, I'd catch Ethan's vicious smile, his lips silently mouthing, "Serves you right." He thought I would cry. I simply poured out the tacks, tossed the spiders in the trash, and folded the ruined dresses away. The smile vanished from Ethan Smith's face at once. Staring at me, he ground out, "Let's see how long you can keep up the act." Fortunately, this time, though I had to endure his torment, I still enjoyed the Smiths' full resources. I no longer had to study while doing odd jobs for my adoptive parents. There was a nanny to look after me, a driver to take me to school. All I had to do was focus on my studies. In my previous life, I had to scrimp for ages to buy supplementary materials, hiding the money so my adoptive father wouldn't drink and gamble it away. Now my wardrobe is full of designer dresses. The jewelry boxes are Van Cleef and Arpels and Cartier, all casually gifted by my foster mother. No need to spend a cent of my own. Every month, I get 50,000 yuan in cash as pocket money and a credit card with a 100,000 limit. If I run out, I just tell the butler and the funds are topped up within half an hour. As for the grinding hardship I once endured, it's fallen squarely on Ariel Johnson now. I saw my sister nodding off through entire classes. I knew it was because she had to help her adoptive mother clean at night and wasn't sleeping. Gradually, she began neglecting her homework and turning in blank tests. In my previous life, I lived on black coffee to keep going when I got too sleepy. I jabbed a compass into my hand and gritted my teeth through the work. But Ariel Johnson had been raised as a pampered young lady. She didn't have that will or grit. To her, being the Crown Prince's fiancé was worth 100 times more than being admitted to Stanford or Harvard. So she devoted all her energy to making Ethan Smith like her more. In math class, she ignored the lecture and scribbled a secret diary to Ethan. During dance practice, she cut class, racing out to the suburbs with him to stargaze. Before the performance, she sat outside the practice room sobbing. I guessed she'd studied the proper way to cry for an idol. Drama heroine, chin tilted up at a 45-degree angle, eyes brimming but tears refusing to fall, and right then Ethan Smith happened to pass by and see her. The moment he asked, "What's wrong?" the tears she'd been holding back spilled over. Ariel threw herself into his arms and wept. "Ethan, I can't go on stage anymore. Every other girl in the class can, but Sister Heiress Smith won't let me join." Ethan already hated me to the bone. Hearing that, he flared up at once. "Why?" Ariel bit her lip, struggling to hold back her sobs but still hiccuping. She said my mom is just a janitor, and my dad's only a security guard. I can't even afford a costume, so I'm not fit to be on stage. Ethan's face grew darker and darker. Seeing Ariel choke back her tears, he said in a low voice, "Isn't it just a costume? I'll buy it for you." Ariel shook her head, putting on the righteous air of a pure, penniless white lotus. "It's 800 yuan a set. I can't accept something that expensive from you." Seething yet tender, Ethan immediately asked, "What exactly did Kara Smith do?" Ariel's eyes shimmered as she shook her head again. "She's your sister, after all, the Smith family's young lady. On campus, several buildings were donated by your family, and your father is the honorary board chair. Even if the teachers know she bullies me, what can they do?" She didn't notice that just then, a reporter who'd come to campus for an interview was passing by, craning his neck to eavesdrop. At the word bullying, he reacted like a shark scenting blood and snapped, "Bullying? What bullying?" The matter exploded. In the school's largest conference room, it was packed. Principal, vice principal, dean of discipline, homeroom, teachers, reporters from multiple outlets, plus both sets of adoptive parents, Ariel Johnson's and the Smiths. The Johnsons stood off to one side, guarding their daughter with tear tracks still on her face, looking both wronged and indignant. Ethan's parents hadn't wanted to come when they first got the call that I was in trouble, but when they learned even the newly appointed director of the Education Bureau was present, they hurried over. Harvard-Westlake School is the city's best school, a focal point for the Bureau. Ethan's father, Mr. Liam Smith, obviously knew the director. As soon as he entered, he stepped forward and said tactfully, "For something so minor to trouble Director Lee, this is just a little spat between kids." But the director was uncompromising, giving no face at all. Sternly, he said, "Chairman Liam, no matter how you put it, school violence can't be called a small matter. I know Kara Smith is the Smith's daughter, but every child here is a student, a sapling. I can't watch them grow crooked." At that, my foster father couldn't very well argue. He forced a smile. Yes, we don't know the details yet. Please conduct a thorough investigation." Returning to my foster mother's side, the two of them exchanged a look. I knew perfectly well that if the charge of bullying was confirmed, the Smiths would discard me. At once, cutting ties completely with an adopted child to whom they'd never been truly attached. If that was their stance, all the more so for Ethan Smith, he stood beside the sniffling Ariel Johnson, murmuring gentle comforts, occasionally lifting those dark eyes to shoot me a cold glance. Once everyone had gathered, the principal spoke up. "Ariel Johnson, tell us again, what happened?" Ariel lifted her reddened eyes and repeated word for word what she'd told Ethan Smith. The reporters erupted. One spoke up. "Our preliminary inquiry shows that Kara Smith and Ariel Johnson were friends from the same orphanage, like sisters. Later, Kara Smith was adopted by the Smith conglomerate, while Ariel Johnson was taken in by a pair of school custodians. Does entering a rich family give you the right to bully an old friend and rob her of opportunities that should have been hers?" The room fell silent. Camera tally lights flashed red in bursts, all lenses pointed at me. It was a volatile topic, perfect for igniting public outrage, especially at a time when class divisions were hardening. If rich kids keep seizing educational resources from the poor and blocking their path upward, the social backlash would be fierce. All the more when the protagonists were me and Ariel Johnson so theatrically opposed. In the hush of the principal's office, I let out a small laugh jarringly. Out of place in the tense air, making the reporters trade looks, I spoke. "Teachers, from what I've read, news must be cross-checked and facts investigated. Since when do you get to skip that step just to publish a sensational headline?" A few reporters flushed. I stood, pointed coldly at Ariel Johnson and said, "Right now, the only source is her. Everything is one-sided." Looking straight at her pale, tear-rimmed face, I continued. "Ariel Johnson is jealous of me. We started out equals. She was even prettier and smarter. So why am I doing better now? Jealousy turned to hatred, so she made up this story to ruin me." At that, Ethan Smith shot back immediately. "Ariel chose the Johnsons herself. She can't be someone who fawns on the rich and despises the poor. You're twisting black into white." But before he finished, the door to the principal's office swung open. In the doorway stood a thin girl with short hair, quiet and resilient like a wild weed. Our homeroom teacher recognized her at once. "Desi, what are you doing here?" In my previous life, Desi had already been dead by this point. But in this life, she was still here. Desi walked into the room step by step, stood beside me, and said softly, "I'm here to testify." Her appearance was so sudden that the reporters didn't react in time. Someone asked, "Student, are you here to testify that Kara Smith bullied Ariel Johnson?" At a glance from her clothes, it was obvious Desi wasn't from a rich family. If anything, she seemed more like the same type as Ariel Johnson than like me. She lifted her head, glanced at the reporter who'd asked, and shook it. "No, I'm here to testify for Kara Smith." I was taken aback. To be honest, I'd prepared thoroughly for today's confrontation. But Desi was not on the witness list I'd calculated. After all, we weren't close. The last time I gave her money, Desi had checked market rates for tutors and calculated it strictly by the hour, then returned the entire excess to me. She tutored me in math exactly 1 hour a day and left the moment time was up, like a pre-programmed machine, cool, distant, principled. In my previous life, a month before the college entrance exam, She jumped from a building. All of Desi's hopes had been pinned on getting into a good university, so she could quickly earn money to pay for her grandmother's treatment. But right before the exam, her father lost at gambling, downed a few bottles of cheap baijiu, then came home and beat her within an inch of her life. He even broke her right arm, her writing hand. No one knows what else he did that day. All we know is that when she was found, that quiet girl was lying in the courtyard below, dead from the rooftop. In this life, even if Desi and I didn't become friends, I still wanted to save her. I paid 2 thugs to put her father in the hospital, at least until the exams were over. He wouldn't be able to lift a hand against her. To set it up, I skipped evening self-study for once, only to be caught by Desi herself, who was in charge of attendance. She asked me, "Why were you absent?" I scratched my head, scrambling for an excuse. I was perfectly healthy, with no sign of being ill, and I certainly couldn't say, "I ditched class to have your dad beaten up." Just then, the teacher on duty at the security office called out, "Desi, there's a phone call for you." It was the news about her father. 5 minutes later, Desi returned, face as calm as ever. She put down her pen, then picked it back up. "I won't mark it this time. Don't be absent again." I exhaled in relief and hurried back to my seat to study. And now, in that same even tone, she said, "I testify for Kara Smith." It hit me that perhaps Desi knew everything. Under everyone's gaze, Desi laid a stack of forms on the table, and Ariel Johnson's face went instantly white. Per the rules, anyone using the dance studio had to sign in on a register. Time in, time out, who was present, everything clearly recorded. But since checks weren't strict and filling it out was a hassle, people gradually stopped doing it. A quick word to the dance teacher was enough. No one expected Desi to have filled it out meticulously every time and kept them all. In front of everyone, more than 30 sign-in sheets were spread out. It was plain that in the studio use records, the name Ariel Johnson appeared exactly twice. In other words, out of more than 30 rehearsals, she'd attended only 2. Once everyone had seen that, Desi spoke slowly. Ariel Johnson said Kara Smith mocked her for not being able to afford a performance costume and therefore barred her from the stage. But when I told Kara Smith I couldn't afford a costume and wanted to quit, the next day she bought uniforms for our entire group. Desi continued. Ariel Johnson also claimed Kara Smith bullied her because her parents are a security guard and a janitor. But my father doesn't even have a steady job. Our whole family lives off my grandmother's stipend. If Kara Smith really despised the poor, why didn't she bully me? That self-exposure of her own scars left everyone silent. In that quiet, I sighed, pulled out my phone, put it on speaker, and played a video. It was clear to all, Ariel Johnson's movements were chaotic and noticeably slower than everyone else's, an obvious result of skipping practice to go stargazing with Ethan Smith. The truth was, Ariel hadn't cared much about this performance to begin with. Only when she saw her name crossed out did she spin a story in front of Ethan Smith, both to make herself look pitiful and to make him hate me. Who would have thought it would blow up like this while I had both witness and physical evidence ready? Strictly speaking, I shouldn't have removed her on my own. But this time the performance came with special bonus points for arts talent admissions. We had 2 girls in the group counting on those points to get into their target schools. Letting Ariel take part would have directly harmed their futures, so I had to make that call. After the interview session, public opinion on me and Ariel Johnson flipped instantly. Classmates said she suffered from a persecution complex and began to avoid her. Don't get too close to Ariel Johnson. If you argue with her, she'll say you hate the poor and bully them. Her family isn't that poor anyway. Both parents have stable jobs. There are students here who need tuition loans, and you don't see them crying bullying. Sigh. Some people won't work hard and prefer blaming fate. Unexpectedly, Ariel Johnson went quiet. She kept her head down through the final self-study period and caused no further trouble up to the college exams. Desi warned me, "Be careful. She's probably getting ready to strike back." I smiled. It's fine. If she wants to play, I'll play along. Even if I couldn't see it clearly, I could feel Ariel plotting in the dark. Because at home, Ethan Smith's attitude toward me worsened by the day. Before, even when he bullied me, he avoided doing it in front of his parents. Now, with the whole family at dinner, he suddenly slammed a bowl of chicken soup onto the table, hot broth and oil splashing straight into my face. The nanny cried out in alarm and ran to get ice and burn ointment. My foster mother kept her head down, eating as if she hadn't seen a thing. My foster father merely lifted his eyes and said to Ethan coolly, "Be gentle. Don't let people think our family can't teach its children." My foster parents didn't care about me. In their eyes, I was just an adopted child taken in on a feng shui master's say-so, like a money tree placed in the house for luck. In my previous life, Ariel had tried to curry favor and build a bond with my foster parents. But reality proved that road utterly wrong. When they were busy, they left even their biological child to the nanny. So how would they ever make time to bond with an adopted one? In a wealthy clan, talk of feelings is meaningless. Only interests get results. Setting the ice pack down, I spoke calmly. Mom, Dad, I have something to report. I scored 718 on the college entrance exam, top scorer in the sciences. The words were barely out when both my foster parents snapped their heads up and even Ethan Smith's eyes widened. I picked up another bite of stir-fried greens, finished chewing slowly, then looked up to meet 3 astonished gazes. Mildly, I added, "You always said academics are a personal matter, so I hadn't planned to mention it. But my teacher called, just now. Some reporters want to interview you about your education methods. So I thought I'd ask if you're free." In my previous life, even without studying that hard, my grades had already been excellent. In this life, with the same body of knowledge from before and without the old obstacles, my scores shot straight to the top. My foster parents exchanged a glance. They'd never cared much about the exams. Ethan Smith had long since secured a place at a school in Australia. He'd be flying abroad right after graduation. No need to sit for any tests. As for me, I was just an adopted child. They let fate take its course. No one had imagined I'd achieve a result like this. I turned to my foster father. "I want to apply to Yale's School of Management. In freshman year, I also want to intern in the investment division of your group." Ethan's father was silent for 2 seconds. When he spoke, there was already a smile on his face. "That's an admirable ambition. Kara, congratulations. Selena, bring in the bottle of wine from the car trunk. You're 18 now, aren't you? Let's have a proper celebration tonight." I ignored the inky, almost tear-dark look in Ethan Smith's eyes, raised my glass to clink with his parents, and gently thanked them for raising me. My bet was right. An ordinary adopted child might be beneath their notice, but university valedictorian? That's the family's pride, proof of successful education, the hope of the future. Ethan's parents were overjoyed. They opened several bottles of fine wine and set up interview times with reporters before staggering off to rest. Left at the table were only Ethan Smith and me. The chandelier cast light across his features, handsome, rakish, yet shadowy and unreadable. He'd inherited all the striking lines of his mother's face, but those deep black eyes were ice cold as he said, "Kara Smith, don't think this makes you one of us." I rose, politely pushed my chair back in, then leaned to his ear and murmured, "Ethan, keep the situation straight. Right now, it's your parents who are actively trying to make me family." On the day I returned to school to pick up my score report, I ran into Ariel Johnson. She stood in the shade watching me, eyes full of hatred, confusion, and fury. I knew why. She'd probably just seen the video interview of me with Ethan's parents. In it, my foster mother had an arm around my shoulders, my foster father animated as he chatted with the host. The MC couldn't stop praising him as both a successful businessman and a model parent. At the end, we posed for a group photo, looking exactly like a flawless family in an advertisement. That was something Ariel Johnson had never had in our previous life. She looked at me, voice low but bitter. "What trick did you use?" I shrugged. "Studying hard and making progress every day. Do you buy that?" With that, I turned and walked away. Of course, Ariel Johnson wouldn't believe me, but that really was the only answer. Behind me, I heard her murmur, "Even if you win over your foster parents' love, it's useless. The one Ethan Smith loves is me." Well then, textbook idol drama leads, right? Even if the parents object, even if the whole world is against them, they still end up together. All I could do was smile and offer my blessings to my little sister. 10 minutes later, I ran into the male lead, Ethan Smith. A pack of his lackeys trailed behind him and they blocked me in the hallway. By then, teachers and students had already left campus. The building was silent. I looked up and felt my heart sink. The security camera had been smashed earlier. Clearly, this was an ambush. Ethan stood in front of me, voice low. "Kara Smith, it's time to wake up from your carp turning into a dragon fantasy. Today, I'll show you what happens to a hypocrite." Before the words even finished, his lackeys rushed me, yanked my hair, and slammed my head into the wall. With a thud, plaster dust drifted down. Pain flashed sparks across my vision. From nowhere, strength surged up. I drove my foot hard into one thug's stomach. With a heavy thump, he doubled over and collapsed, face twisted in agony. Ethan's expression changed. He was just about to signal the others to rush when I pulled a bottle of red wine from my bag, the gift my foster father had handed me earlier, telling me to bring it to a get-together with friends. Without hesitation, I hurled it at the wall. A sharp crash, wine and shards sprayed everywhere. I lifted the jagged neck of the broken bottle and leveled it at the dozen or so boys. I shouted, "Come on then!" My hair was a tangled mess, full of plaster dust. Warm liquid ran from the bridge of my nose to my chin. Blood, probably. I didn't know how crazed I looked just then, but clearly it was enough to make them all freeze. No one dared step forward. Wiping the blood from my nose with the back of my hand, I smiled coldly. "Ethan Smith, very noble of you. I'm the hypocrite, and you're justice. For all my hypocrisy, at least I spend money to save people. Your so-called justice, young Master Ethan, who exactly have you ever helped? Or do you only help the little flower you love most?" In the distance, Ariel Johnson bit her lip and edged sideways. She didn't need to hide. I'd seen her from the start. Ethan wanted to teach me a lesson on her behalf. How could she miss such a show? My nose was still bleeding. I ignored it. I stared straight at Ethan, then swept my gaze across the boys behind him. I smiled, calm as ever. "Ethan Smith, you brought so many people, made such a big show of it. You'd better make sure I don't walk out of here alive today, because if I do..." My smile vanished. "I'll drag you down to hell with me." Ethan's face went pale. As Ariel liked to say, his father was an honorary board member, and the Smiths held real power. As long as there were no serious consequences, most teachers would turn a blind eye to his bullying. But killing someone on school grounds? He didn't dare. He stared at me for a long moment, then said icily, "For a scheming girl like you, dying right now would be getting off cheap." I laughed aloud. "You call that scheming? Want to know what real scheming looks like?" Meeting Ethan's eyes, a current of exhilaration ran through me. Finally, I could tell him, word by word. Slowly, I said, "I was the one who invited the reporters investigating the bullying." At once, both Ethan Smith's and Ariel Johnson's pupils contracted. "You think it was a coincidence?" I went on. "That a reporter just happened to be at school to overhear the word bullying?" I sent anonymous letters to several outlets accusing Harvard-Westlake School of rampant bullying. If that kind of tip is true, it hits the front page. Of course they'd dispatch someone. I smiled. Knowing Ariel's slow little brain, when I cut her from the performance, she was 8 times out of 10 going to cry to you that I was bullying her. She accuses me on one side. The reporters, already watching from the shadows, zoom in on me on the other. But I'd already prepared enough evidence to prove my innocence. Ethan Smith, think about it. When the reporters realize they're wrong, that I'm not the bully, do you think they'll stop? Or will they dig deeper? Ethan went sheet white. I smiled and concluded, "Get it now? The whole chessboard. I set it up for you. Of the 7 or 8 reporters that day, even if only 2 keep digging, it's enough for you to choke on a sip of cold water." The Education Bureau director made it crystal clear he hates school violence most of all. If your bullying comes to light, not even your father can save you. See, young Master Ethan, this is what real scheming looks like. I beamed at him, then leaned in and said brightly, "So, dear big brother B, a good boy, shield me, back me up, let me work in peace at the Smith Group. Otherwise, I'll drag the entire Smith family down to hell with me." My smile snapped off. I tapped the sharp bottleneck lightly against Ethan's throat, then turned and walked away. No one dared stop me. Only Ariel Johnson's voice, tinged with a sob, sounded behind me. "Ethan, how could you let her go like that?" What answered her was his cold, irritable bark. "Get lost!" After that, Ethan Smith suddenly behaved himself. In the past, he'd never let me attend Smith family functions. This time, when an invitation came, he took the initiative and told my foster mother, "Mom, I'm taking my sister along. Help her pick a formal dress." Over the phone, I could hear Ariel making a scene. "If you're bringing your girlfriend, shouldn't you bring me too?" Ethan's voice was full of annoyance. "I already paid to send you to study in Australia. What else do you want?" Ariel's exam scores were terrible. In our previous life, she hadn't been good at studying to begin with. She put all her effort into winning over the Smiths. In this life, the difficulty setting had flipped from easy to hell, and her grades were even worse. Her only path was to cling to Ethan Smith, trailing wherever he went. But I could tell Ethan was getting bored. What had first drawn him to Ariel Johnson was that poor but resilient White Lotus act. But that wasn't who she really was. You can act for a while, but not for a lifetime. Ethan Smith liked a poor girl who knew how to say no to lavish gifts. Not a girl who begged and cried to be taken to Australia with him. Unfortunately, Ariel Johnson had no way out. If Ethan Smith didn't take her along, she'd truly be trapped to death in that stifling Johnson household. When summer break ended, Ariel Johnson followed Ethan Smith to Australia. Although Ethan never publicly said who his girlfriend was, my foster parents hired paparazzi to tail them. They snapped photos of the two having intimate meals and splashed them online under the headline, "Heir of the Smith Conglomerate and His Childhood Sweetheart Girlfriend." Ethan's father smashed his phone when he saw the news. What a schemer! She hasn't even passed her college entrance exam and she's already clinging to our family. When Ethan returned home, his father unloaded on him, like dousing him in a torrent of scolding. If you want a wife, wait for us to pick one. While you wait, it's fine to have a few casual girlfriends. But don't you bring home someone who's obviously no good the moment you lay eyes on her. Ethan kept silent and took the tongue lashing, but his gaze quietly came to rest on me where I sat to the side. I felt it, but lowered my head and continued reading the financial report. In our previous life, Ariel Johnson's adoptive parents were exactly the same whenever Ethan Smith showed the slightest interest in me. They got desperate, trying to drug me and stuff me into the Smith's bed. As for my foster mother, in our previous life, she vehemently opposed her son marrying a girl from a family like the Johnsons. She just didn't live long enough to see Ethan wed. She died early. After that round of scolding, Ethan's father forbade his son from seeing Ariel during the summer. Ethan didn't resist. He stayed home the whole time, even took the initiative to curry favor with me, giving me pricey diamond earrings for my birthday, or when I went out with friends until late, he'd wait outside the bar to drive me home. That night, Desi and I sat together. She held a virgin mojito and glanced out at Ethan Smith chain smoking. She was about to say something, but I raised a hand to stop her. I know what you're going to say. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. After saying goodbye to friends, I got into the passenger seat. Ethan Smith handed me a bag, hangover soup, and a small cake from my favorite bakery. I smiled. Ethan Smith, that's not necessary. He pressed the accelerator without a word. He didn't speak the entire drive. When we got home, I tossed both the soup and the cake into the trash. Ethan stood beside me, watching from start to finish, and said nothing. I went back to my room, not intending to give it another thought. Desi is currently studying computer science at Stanford. Lately, she developed a program that can improve enterprise HR management efficiency, an opportunity to start her own company. I've interned nearly 3 years in the Smith Group's strategic investment division and have some say there, so I decided to invest $2 million in Desi and found a company together. She handles tech, I handle business. Work is hectic right now. Compared with that, Ethan Smith really isn't important. I didn't expect that Ethan dropping me off would catch Ariel Johnson's eye. She hadn't seen him in a long time, so she'd staked out the gated community, just to catch a glimpse, only to see me step out of Ethan Smith's car. I can imagine how fear must have flooded her in that moment, probably seeing the scene from our previous life. Ethan Smith coldly throwing her out of the house with nothing, then turning to gently drape a wedding dress over me. That is her deepest nightmare. On Monday morning, after meeting a client and leaving their office building, I was carrying a stack of documents toward the stairwell when I suddenly spotted a familiar figure, Ariel Johnson. She was visibly thinner, cheeks a bit sunken, eyes bloodshot. Even so, she was very beautiful, a palm-sized face, big Barbie doll eyes, like she'd stepped off a magazine cover. Back at the orphanage, Ariel had always been the prettiest child. Practically every family that came to adopt noticed her at first glance. If not for her pride, she would have been adopted long ago, and that's exactly why she's even more unwilling to accept things now. Step by step, Ariel walked toward me. She was in heels, so she stood almost half a head taller than I did in my flats for client calls. Ariel Johnson said, "I'm pregnant. It's Ethan Smith's." I replied lightly, "Is that so? Then you really shouldn't be wearing heels like that." Her eyes locked onto my face, as if searching for a flicker of emotion but found nothing. And she was the first to break. Grinding her teeth, Ariel said, "Kara Smith, what tricks do you still have left? How did you steal Ethan Smith from me? In this life, he's supposed to like me, and you're the one he hates most. He shouldn't leave you a single cent. Why? Why is it like this? I studied every way you flattered him in our previous life, and copied it exactly, but he's only grown colder to me. What else are you hiding? Tell me." Watching her cry in anguish, I finally sighed softly. "Move aside. I have another client to see." Ariel lifted her head, voice sharpening. "You won't say? Fine. Only then did I sense something. Too late. She suddenly lunged, clutched me tight, and flung herself backward. We both tumbled down the stairs. With a crash, we slammed into the landing. The back of my head hit the railing. My vision went black. My knee throbbed so hard, I couldn't even tell which leg could still move. Through the dizziness, I heard Ariel sobbing, calling, "Ethan!" Forcing my eyes open, I faintly made out the person standing in front of us, Ethan Smith. Blood spread across Ariel Johnson's skirt. Crying, she said, "Ethan, our baby is gone." She pushed me. She said if I had the baby, it would take a share of her inheritance. Ethan Smith's face went ashen. After a long moment, he bent down and lifted me up. Ariel's eyes flew wide in disbelief. Her broken voice chased him. "Ethan." But Ethan said coldly, "Ariel Johnson, you disgust me." Ariel began to tremble violently. This was her nightmare. In our previous life, Ethan Smith often told her the same thing. "Ariel Johnson, you disgust me." This time, different choices, different process, but the same ending. She went hysterical, screaming, "Why? I clearly chose right. I chose right. Why does it end like this no matter what I choose?" I could no longer hear the next sentences clearly. The concussion's haze from the blow to my head deepened, and the darkness swallowed everything. The hospital room smelled faintly of antiseptic. I opened my eyes to see Ethan Smith sitting by the bed. He said gently, "It was Ariel Johnson who called me there. She must have planned to frame you. But I got there early and heard your whole conversation. Kara, just rest and don't think about anything else. As for that baby," she slipped a drug into my juice. My legs still hurt. My head still pounded. I cut him off without being polite. "Sorry, is this you explaining yourself to me?" Ethan's face tightened. I pulled the blanket up. "If your parents demand an explanation, then sure, explain it to them. But this doesn't seem to have anything to do with me." He was silent for a long time, then said softly, "I want to break up with her." Awkward silence hung in the air. I smiled. "Then that has even less to do with me." Startled, Ethan looked up at me. "Kara, do you really, truly not understand what I mean?" I looked steadily into his eyes. Expectation filled them, growing by the second. When it reached its peak, I laughed. "Of course I understand. Ethan Smith, you really are the world's #1 ambassador of self-devaluation." The light in Ethan's eyes dimmed at once. After a long pause, he said quietly, "I know I've done a lot wrong, but I'm willing to spend the rest of my life begging for your forgiveness. When you first came to my house, I truly hated you. But somehow, later on, I couldn't stop myself from caring about you. That day in the school hallway, when you threatened me, said you'd drag the entire Smith family down to hell. I didn't even get angry. On the contrary, I realized you were nothing like I'd imagined. You're strong, brave, full of life, the kind of person I like." When he finished that confession, Ethan lowered his head, voice trembling slightly. "Lately, I keep dreaming the same dream. I'm getting married, and the bride is you. I'm holding your hand and saying from now on, what's mine is yours. Kara, we could be so happy." I smiled. Ethan Smith, we could be very happy. How about this? You drink the water in the toilet bowl and I'll reconsider. Deal?" Ethan left. He said he knew I couldn't forgive him yet, but he was willing to wait. After he stepped out of the ward, Desi, who'd been waiting outside, came in. I glanced at her and asked, "You heard all that, right?" Desi chuckled. "I did. So what do you want to say to me now? Also, I want to ask, did the client this morning show more than 50% intent? When can we close the deal?" I chuckled. Heartless. "Shouldn't you at least ask when I'm getting discharged?" Desi said, "I just asked the doctor outside. He said in 2 days. I've already adjusted our schedule based on that. The next roadshow is tentatively set for 3 days from now." I pouted in protest. "Can't you give me a few more days off?" Desi shot me down flat. "No, I know what matters most to you. No surprise. That's my partner. With such a capable co-founder, what do I have to worry about when it comes to making a fortune?" After the roadshow, I set aside a day to visit Ariel Johnson in the hospital. She'd lost the baby and lay in bed, haggard and hollow-cheeked. Word had it Ethan Smith had broken up with her, and throughout her hospital stay, the Johnsons never came to see her. The only visitors were those she hadn't expected, the orphanage director and a few of our fellow orphans. The director said, "Kara paid for our travel here. She's been quietly donating to the orphanage all these years. Thanks to her, Lita and Lily's illnesses have improved a lot." Ariel was stunned. In truth, Most of the children at the orphanage had little chance of being adopted, abandoned for disability, cognitive issues, or serious disease. Compared to them, Ariel and I, healthy and pretty, were already the lucky ones, among the lucky. Back then, the director had told us, "We're one big family. All the children are brothers and sisters." But after leaving the orphanage, Ariel never once thought of those siblings. I, on the other hand, kept returning as a volunteer in my previous life, and in this one, after entering the Smith family, I donated even more, helping disabled children get treatment and find a path to live. Looking at the kids before her, shyly whispering about their sister Kara, Ariel suddenly broke down and cried. She cried for a long time. When the director led the children away, I went over to her. She didn't register my presence until I'd waited silently through half her sobbing. Then she covered her face and choked out, "Do you hate me very much?" Before I could answer, she blurted, "I hate you too. I only wanted a better life. Where did I go wrong?" I thought a moment and replied, "You didn't. You just chose the wrong way." Ariel stared at me. "You mean I'm not like you? Not gentle? Not pure? Not compassionate?" I shook my head. "No, Ariel. Your biggest mistake, both in the last life and this one, was always scheming to eat someone else's cake. But why should their cake be for you to eat? And if they really let you eat it, who's to say it isn't poisoned? The right way is to bake your own cake," Ariel wailed. "What right do you have to lecture me? Don't you want a share of the Smiths' assets?" I shook my head. "I don't. The $2 million the Smiths gave me, I've already repaid, principal and interest, once Desi's and my company turned a profit. As for the clothes and jewelry my foster parents gave me, anything valuable is locked in a safe with a clear inventory. I hope to cut ties with the Smiths completely in the future. The reason is simple. The Smith fortune was built on real estate. For 30 years they seized land and built houses. There were deaths along the way, and who knows how many shady deals in the dark. The Smiths have methods, so for now they can cover it up, but not forever. Blood-stained money will cause disaster sooner or later. When that time comes, everyone connected to the Smith group will do time." Ariel couldn't grasp any of that. She just stared at me. After a long while, she whispered, "In 2 lives, I still lost to you." I shook my head lightly, then leaned in close. "That's why I came. I have a few words for you. Ariel, in both lives, you chased me down and sank your teeth into me, treating me as your greatest enemy. But tell me, across both lives, was I really the one who ruined you?" Like a bolt from the blue, Ariel began to tremble all over and sobbed uncontrollably. I turned and left without looking back. Time flew by. On the day Desi's and my company went public, I saw the news in front. Of the Smith Group headquarters, Ariel Johnson had stabbed Ethan Smith. Desi, standing beside me, saw the same report. It said Ariel had been arrested, and Ethan Smith was in emergency surgery, his life uncertain. Desi glanced once and looked away. I teased, "You're not going to ask if I'm worried about Ethan Smith?" She said, "You're not." I smiled. "But he used to love me very much, didn't he?" Desi's expression didn't change. "I'd rather see you take out a loan from a loan shark than accept love from a rotten man. Now hand me the press conference draft. We go live soon. I count 6 sentence breaks that still need fixing." I laughed. All right, class rep. The world's largest industry conference was about to begin. Under blazing lights, the MC launched into a rousing opening. Desi and I, 2 of the youngest and most watched female founders, were about to take the stage. A sea of flashbulbs was about to explode for us. Countless lenses would be trained upon us. Desi wore a crisp white suit. She is cool, neat, straightforward, striking. The wild weed that had grown in silence through her youth had finally become a proud pine standing against the blizzard. I wore a long black silk gown, gentle, poised, with a hidden luster after the last dark night, the stars at last in view. I asked softly, "Desi, are you nervous?" "Ah, never mind. Artificial intelligence doesn't get nervous." "Dumb question." After a beat of silence, Desi took my hand, warmth passing into my palm. "Kara Smith, don't be nervous." The stage curtain opened. My name bloomed across the giant LED screen. Desi and I walked up hand in hand, greeted by applause crashing like a coral sea. Afterward, Desi's and my company kept growing. Ethan Smith didn't die. His injuries were severe, but after emergency surgery, he pulled through. Good. Someone needed to live to pay for the Smith Group's karmic debts. Ariel Johnson went to prison. From there, she wrote to me, saying that if she had the chance to get out, she wanted to return to the orphanage as a volunteer to care for the children. She said she wanted to spend the rest of her life atoning to me. At the end of the letter, she still called me sister. My feelings were complicated. I simply put the letters away. Some of the orphanage kids ran up to me. "Sister Kara, what are you reading?" I shook my head. "Nothing." Today, Desi and I visited the director. We decided to establish a charitable fund in our company's name to help children who weren't adopted or who were adopted but fell into hardship, providing long-term support. The sun was warm, the sky a clear blue. We had finally stepped into the future we'd always wished for. Side story, Desi had always thought she was someone without friends. At this school, the pretty played with the pretty, the rich with the rich. She was neither pretty nor rich, and her temperament was odd, obviously. The kind no one would like, so she simply existed in silence. Until a girl kept sticking to her, saying, "Class rep, why do you wear long sleeves when it's so hot?" "Class rep, you're clearly talented at dance. Why didn't you go when the dance teacher asked you to join the performance?" Annoying. None of those silly questions had answers. Desi could only stay silent, and the girl misunderstood her silence as coldness. The girl slunk off, then came back a few hours later. "Class rep, teach me conic sections. I'll buy you spicy breadsticks." In truth, that girl's circumstances weren't good either. Her dad seemed to be the school's security guard, and her mom a janitor. Compared to Desi's family, a little better, but not by much. And while Desi at least had her grandmother, the girl's parents hardly cared about their daughter at all. But that girl was the opposite of Desi. She was well-liked, everyone in class adored her. Rumor had it some rich heir from the next class was pursuing her fiercely. Sometimes Desi got nosy and asked, "Hey, I heard that idiot Ethan likes you." The girl was chewing on her pen, doing math. "I don't need love from a scumbag," she answered coolly. They didn't interact much, but it seemed the girl had guessed at Desi's home situation. She said, "Class rep, take some money." The girl had to save for ages to buy reference books. Who knew where she'd scrape the money together, but Desi refused to accept it. She was poor, yes, but her pride was stubbornly high. "I didn't do anything. I can't take your money." That was one of their rare conversations. Desi focused on studying, believing that once she got into university, everything would be okay. Her grades were excellent. She had a shot at Stanford or Harvard. Even if she missed, she'd at least enter a top school. Then she could work, buy medicine for her grandmother, and go find that girl to hang out and be friends. But with only a month left before the college entrance exam, Desi's father came home with a single line, "Your grandma's not gonna make it." Desi went cold all over. Her father was drunk, muttering, "The illness can't be cured and it's just burning money." The doctor said there's only a 30% chance with surgery, so I said forget it. And she'd just keep draining money at home, so I left her in the hospital corridor. That damned old hag just a burden to me. Desi's ears rang. She dug the last of her money out of her bag. It was meant for college tuition and ran for the hospital to save her grandmother. But her father grabbed her and snarled, "So you've still got cash, brat? Yesterday, when the debt collectors were beating me, why didn't you bring it out?" Desi struggled with everything she had, but she was too thin and weak. Her arms and legs like bean sprouts, with no strength behind them. He ripped the money away and beat her worse than ever, cursing as he struck. "You little wretch, I gave you life. If I beat you to death today, you deserve it." She blacked out. When she came to, her father had taken the money to drink. She stumbled to the hospital like a madwoman. The doctor, who knew her, just shook his head, full of pity. "She's gone. What happened to your right hand?" Desi looked at her arm. It was twisted at a strange angle. Even an outsider could tell it was broken. She refused the x-ray and staggered home alone. On the way, a girl stopped her. Gold-rimmed glasses, white blouse, gentle and composed about Desi's age. She asked, "Do you want to start over?" It seemed the girl said something more, but Desi couldn't make it out. In the end, the girl stuffed a slip of paper into Desi's hand and said, "If you want to start over, write your name, date of birth, and address, then text this number. I can give you one chance to begin again." Desi sat on the rooftop ledge, thinking about what the girl had said. Start over. And then what? In this life, she had already tried so hard. If she started again, would it really be any better? No! Leave that chance to someone who truly needs it. So Desi took out her phone. She was class rep, and the class information sheet had everyone's data. She found the girl's details. They said the girl had been locked up and beaten by her parents for refusing to see that rich heir so pitiful. Let her be the one to start over. She was strong. If given a chance, she would surely live better. Desi held her phone, her right arm broken. She could only peck out the letters with her left. One painful character at a time, filled in the girl's information, and sent the message. Sent successfully. Breathing out, Desi leapt, carrying with her a sky full of despair and a small, solitary blessing. Desi woke up. She remembered jumping, yet when she opened her eyes, she was lying in bed. A jumble of images crowded her mind, unclear whether they were dreams or forgotten memories. It can't be real. An ordinary person like her couldn't possibly have a novel heroine's power to be reborn. It must be a dream. Her alarm went off. Desi dragged herself up for school. Today was a big day. The Smiths' young lady was transferring into their class. The scene felt eerily familiar, like something from a dream. In that dream, the young lady had been bullied in the bathroom. Desi had walked over, handed her a towel, and urged her to report it. Only to have the girl shake her hand off and say, "Report what? He's my brother." So this time, Desi didn't plan to get involved. She'd just hand over the towel and leave. Unexpectedly, the young lady called out, "Class rep." Desi paused. In that instant, it felt as if this voice had echoed through her dreams countless times. The Smith's young lady was very friendly. She invited Desi to eat with her and asked Desi to tutor her. After 2 sessions, Desi realized the girl was better at coordinate geometry than she was. Clearly, this was an excuse to give Desi money, deftly protecting Desi's fragile pride. Desi had never cried from childhood on, yet her nose stung then. Thanks to the young lady, she managed to save up a sizable sum beyond her living expenses. She got her grandmother into a good hospital for surgery, and the operation succeeded. As for her father, he was mysteriously beaten and hospitalized. Desi probed the young lady about whether she'd had anything to do with it. The girl played dumb from start to finish, though the upward curl of her lips cocked like an AK about to fire. Desi could only fall speechless. Quiet didn't mean she was stupid. Later, when Desi's father was discharged, he fell into new debts. His old fracture was smashed again, a shard of bone piercing his heart. They said that when he was found, there was still a slim chance to save him, but Desi herself signed the refusal of treatment. She scattered his ashes into a foul storm drain, then hired a caregiver for her grandmother. With those 2 burdens settled, she made it into Stanford as she'd wished. Desi had so much she wanted to do. For example, if the young lady wanted to start a company, Desi hoped to be her partner. Over time, the scenes from her dreams grew clearer. Desi realized the young lady was the very girl from her previous life. In this life, she truly had changed her fate. Desi's choice had been worth it. Later, Desi once asked Kara Smith, "From the last life, is there anything that left the deepest impression on you?" Kara blinked. "Too many. Which one do you mean?" Desi said, "Not exactly an event, more like a single image. That day, before dawn, 2 girls in thin school uniforms were out for a morning run. The 2 earliest risers, the 2 who worked the hardest in that school. Youth stretched on, long and poor, like a winter night without end, the horizon nowhere in sight. The short-haired, skinny girl was too exhausted to keep going and wanted to stop. The long-haired girl ran up, took her hand, and pulled her toward the faint light in the west. The light grew, and the world was about to be lit. Desi asked, "Will we really have a bright future?" Kara Smith answered, "We will." Now, Desi and Kara Smith stood hand in hand beneath a blaze of camera flashes. Desi thought, even if she doesn't remember, it doesn't matter because the promise from back then has been kept. They truly were standing in the future they had once wished for.